John Mahama. I have the singular honor to hand over the mic to him to speak to the country on this matter. Mr. President, Excellency.
Thank you, my brothers and sisters. Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters, earlier today, the Supreme Court of the Republic of Ghana gave its ruling in a case brought by the National Democratic Congress against the Electoral Commission of Ghana over its decision to compile a new voters register. Despite the well-reasoned relief we sought, the apex court of our land has given a leeway for the Electoral Commission to go ahead with the exclusion of the existing voter identification card from the list of identification requirements for the registration for the register. My brothers and sisters, we're deeply disappointed and we strongly disagree with the court over this outcome, which has confounded many legal experts and indeed has thrown the whole country into a state of confusion. Our legal team is examining this decision even as we await the full reasons for this judgment. It is also worrying that the court deferred the reasons for its decision to the 15th of July, a date by which time the EC would have been 2 weeks into the said registration exercise. My brothers and sisters, throughout its history, the NDC has stood strongly for an inclusive democracy. That is because our party is built on the principle that no one should be left out in the governance process of Ghana. This principle may be seen through the various programs and projects upon which our democracy is built. The composition of the Consultative Assembly which prepared the 1992 Constitution, the consultations for the review of the Constitution in 2010, which stands out as the most comprehensive consultative program in our history and the history of the sub-region, just to mention a few. The MPP tradition, on the other hand, has since the founding of our nation always stood for an exclusive governance structure, a structure which seeks to leave out the ordinary men and women of our country, a structure which rather favors only a select elite few who consider themselves as owners of the nation. To ensure this, the MPP has, since its assumption of power in 2017, consistently put in place measures which seek to systematically disenfranchise eligible citizens of this nation. Such measures include restricting the identification mechanism for voter registration to documents which are not accessible currently to millions of eligible Ghanaian voters. We have been very clear in our minds that the decision to compile a new voters register was in pursuit of this long-held agenda. Hence our efforts to stop the wholesale attempts to exclude vast sections of our population from the process to determine who leads them.
Peace FM.
This represents the handiwork of a desperate incumbent that, on account of its very poor performance in government, sees its very political survival only through the prism of manipulation of the electoral process to exclude a section of Ghanaians who they suspect may not renew their mandates at the polls. A caring, compassionate, and responsible government would not push us to the brink at a time of a major pandemic such as COVID-19 that is causing so much anguish amongst our citizens. It is deeply regrettable that the Electoral Commission, which should be independent and has carved a niche for itself as a well-respected commission in the whole of Africa, has today made itself a willing tool in the execution of this most diabolic agenda. The exclusion of the old voters' ID card, which has been used to conduct several elections under the current leadership of the Electoral Commission, and from which the current president derives his mandate, is aimed at deliberately disenfranchising some Ghanaians who have falsely been branded foreigners without any basis. The restriction of primary identification to passports, Ghana cards, and the resort to guaranteeing for others is a ruse to create frustration in the hope that it will discourage millions from registering, and in the process it will give advantage ab initio to a bungling and inefficient incumbent. The Ghana card, which has been made one of two identification documents, has not even been fully rolled out. As we speak, these cards are still being issued with no mechanism for verification. The National Identification Authority, the NIA, has itself admitted to duplication of thousands of these cards. Therefore, the NDC's decision to go to the Supreme Court was informed by the party's time-honored belief and commitment to an inclusive democracy as opposed to the MPP's exclusiveness. However, it was obvious from the outset of this struggle that inclusive democracy was not going to have a hearing, even against the resounding calls by the National House of Chiefs, religious leaders, civil society organizations, and various trade and professional groups. My brothers and sisters, the right to vote must, however, not be curtailed on account of this minor setback. We cannot throw our hands up in despair because the fight to insist on inclusion has been temporarily derailed by this ruling of the Supreme Court. We can still make our voices heard, even if we must endure some inconvenience and frustration. To achieve the objective of taking part in the decision over who governs us, we must be willing to make the necessary sacrifices in the present circumstances. I therefore urge all Ghanaians of voting age to channel the disappointment at the effort to exclude them from the electoral process into an opportunity to have their voices heard and turn up to register in their teeming numbers when the process begins next week, Tuesday. The NPP and the Electoral Commission are very much aware that the exclusion of the existing voters' ID will significantly slow down the process of registration and create the real risk of people massing up outside voter centers. But this is what happens when politics is put before the people. While at it, let us keep safe by adhering strictly to all the COVID-19 preventive protocols, such as social distancing, the wearing of face masks, among others, particularly because of the increasing trend in the number of infections and deaths recorded in our country. And I pray that the Almighty God should protect all our citizens who come out to exercise their constitutional rights to register from any sickness or infection by this disease. The process may be made deliberately slow and painful, but I encourage you all to endure insofar as it will enable you to vote out this government that has masterminded this frustration in the first place. We must always be willing to hold leaders accountable for bad decisions that impose difficulties on our citizens. And this is one such clear opportunity to do so. Do not let the several hours you may spend at the registration center get you to surrender your right to vote. If you do so, that will only embolden those who seek to disenfranchise you. To the few who have passports and Ghana cards, please make use of them and register. And to those who get the opportunity to register, I implore you to assist your brothers, your sisters, and compatriots by guaranteeing for them, even if it takes a bit more of your time. Please see this as a civic duty and your contribution to the efforts to preserve the right to vote. This way, we will undo the grand conspiracy to deprive us of the inalienable right to vote, and we will, in the process, send a clear signal that it is only we, the people, who will decide who gets the opportunity to lead this country, and not governments we elect or state agencies who make themselves pliant accomplices in their attempts to disenfranchise us. My brothers and sisters, this is not just an NDC fight. It is a fight to rescue the very soul of our beloved nation from the hands of those who seek to impose their will unjustly on our people. Our forefathers founded this nation with the motto, freedom and justice. It is clear today that never in the history of our Fourth Republic have these two lofty ideals been in such short supply. I salute all the diverse organizations, civil society organizations, prominent chiefs, organized labor, religious leaders, professional groups, and all well-meaning Ghanaians who have rallied around this cause to demand that the right thing be done in the larger national interest. I call on all Ghanaians who yearn to see a change in the governance of this country to rise up and be counted. For where there's a will, there's a way. No politically engineered register can save this failed government. the judgment of the people, from the inevitable defeat that awaits them in the next 165 days. With or without a new voters register, the NDC shall win the election by the grace of God. And I leave you with this famous quote by Emperor Haile Selassie. And he said, throughout history, it has been the inaction of those who could have acted, the indifference of those who should have known better, and the silence of the voice of justice when it mattered most, that has made it possible for evil to triumph. I thank you for your kind attention.